we're trying something a little bit different for this year as far as bringing back some of the educational components that we missed last year. I want to start off by thanking our premier partners, Department of Agriculture. Today we have Patrice Bailey and Brian Erickson here. They'll both get to do a welcome soon enough. The Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, or SMIF. Renewing the Countryside, of course, the organization I work for. You probably all know Elena and Eli as well. The folks over at Ferndale Market have been a year-to-year sponsor. Really appreciate their support. Along with Compeer Financial, People's Food Co-op, the Lake Winds Food Co-op, and the Rochester Farmers Market, and some more individual businesses and friends of Feast that have been instrumental in bringing this programming to you as well, including the Greenstead E1 Collaborative, Barak Studios, Brand Yourself Consulting, who will be joining us in a minute as well, and Nearest You, both of our morning presenters. So really happy to have you all here. I want to go over quickly in case you're, I know a lot of you are multiple year participants. Just want to run over what the mission of Feast is tonight, is to unite the regional resources to grow robust local ag, farm, and food businesses. And with a vision of thriving local food producers who enhance the vibrancy of our region's communities. I think we've been right on mission and vision for that. So no, you can go ahead. Of the programming that is adjacent to the Feast, the food show itself, the marketplace, we provide support services and just added that a few years ago with different vendors and consultants, and some of those will be speaking today and even later in the afternoon with the Finding Success with Wholesale Buyers. Peer networking, a very useful tool for bringing together cohorts of peers to kind of share, build camaraderie and support for each other's work. And awards ranging from the ever popular People's Choice to social and community impact awards on innovative sourcing. I like to say this looks like a food show, and in many ways it is a food show, but at the base of it, it's an ag show. And we really know that the food that is being represented here came from agricultural producers and have really tried to, I yesterday talked a little bit about your value proposition and that being your promise. And we've done a really good job of staying to that. Not a lot of merch, not a lot of soaps or candles. We've been really on message with food and local sourcing. So hope to keep that going. The magazine, one of my favorite parts of doing this, coming from a history of some publishing and some advertising in the back of my career since 2018. Really great stories and support from our community for advertising to get this out. The latest issue on your far right has a featured story by Patrice, and so I'm really glad to have him here. Still have some of those in waiting because we knew we were going to be doing a full year's worth of programming, and so if anybody needs more of these to distribute, they're available. So, and of course there's an online version where kind of a flip book kind of thing, which is kind of fun. Day two, just a quick overview. Online marketing is what you're here for right now. And then we'll be back at 2:00 with Finding Success with Wholesale Buyers. We put that in our in that spot where we know that's where a lot of you food makers, that's the big bite of the apple, right? Is trying to figure out how to build and maintain those relationships with wholesale buyers. And then 3:30, we're going to do a screenshot and just a quick little social. This give us some time for maybe if we want to pop out breakout rooms, if you want to suggest one or something and have a conversation with other makers, we can do that. And but be nice to get one of those gallery views, because usually, you know, how we've taken aerial, you know, photos of all of the participants. This is the 2020 plus. I don't even know if we're counting it as 2021 yet, but this is the version of that. So stick around for that at 3:30. And at this point, I'd like to invite Brian to come on and tell us some of the support services that are offered by the Department of Agriculture.
Well, thank you, Brett. Maybe I'd first like to introduce Patrice Bailey. Patrice is the Assistant Commissioner at the Minnesota Department of Agriculture. And he has the distinct challenge of wrangling all of us marketers in the Ag Marketing and Development Division, which is a big challenge. We appreciate all the work that Patrice does for the department, and he's very supportive of our work with small food companies and Minnesota farms in the area of marketing. So I just wonder if Patrice could say hi quick and maybe give us an update on whatever he wants to talk about quickly.
Well, hopefully everyone can hear me. I can't wait till we get back to the office from doing these Zoom meetings. But I just want to say thank you for having me. It's definitely been a whirlwind this past year, much less this legislative season has been and continues to be very challenging. I'm not really sure where to start because there's been, COVID has allowed the department to be extremely creative of how dollars are spent, reaching people, making sure that the staff is okay. We also started an emerging farmer working group, all within this COVID atmosphere. And so, the things that the Ag Marketing and Development Division do on a normal basis is amazing. But I just wanted to definitely highlight those things. So I guess I'll start with the Emerging Farmer Working Group that was signed into law May 2020. And the whole point of having the Emerging Farmer Working Group was to make sure that we were hearing and addressing the barriers that was preventing people from getting into agriculture, primarily Black, Indigenous, people of color, as well as LGBTQ plus. And this was a huge process to be able to have a working group that reflects the actual folks that are not in agriculture, at least not visibly, on this working group. And so far we've had 6 meetings so far. We meet once a month, and we've really been tackling a lot of issues around the structure of MDA, the grants and loans process, Minnesota Grown. We brought people in to talk about the budget. I think oftentimes people think that there is a rainbow at the end of some destination, and there's a whole bunch of money that agriculture is sort of holding there. But just to know that agriculture is less than 1% of the state's budget, and having to make sure the food industry is protected with 6 million people plus. So it's definitely been a challenge there. However, on the upside, we really had a chance to tackle translation services across the board. I think every division is very cognizant of the fact that they need to reach more people. People that are seeking our services are becoming more and more diverse, and so we've been really working on that. This past legislative season, we've been able to really implore on the House Ag Committee as well as the Senate that emerging farmers, wherever they, regardless of their zip code, definitely needs to be supported, not just with words, but actually with finances as well. And that's something that's still being talked about in the omnibus bill that they've been talking about yesterday, and they continue to do that today. I guess I'll just stop there to see if anyone has any questions, because there's so many things that are happening with different departments and divisions.
Thanks for that, Patrice. I appreciate it. We don't want to take too much time from the great program they have planned this morning, but as I said, you're a great supporter of our work in the Ag Market and Development Division. And I just wanted to quickly, if it's okay with you, cover some of the key program offerings that we have, including what's been on your screen for a little bit here. And then, Elena, if you could advance the slides. Particularly right now, we have some cost sharing available to small food companies and farms, including if you do e-commerce, platform fees, social media and digital advertising, your website if you do e-com, web extensions for things like store locators, which I know is of interest to a speaker we have on the agenda today. So next slide, please. We're very blessed to have these resources to share with our small food companies in Minnesota, and looking forward to more of the same. The results have been great so far. Make sure you're investing in e-com if you're in that CPG space, and we can help you share some of the costs. In touch with us whenever you need help. Thanks for including us this morning.
Great. Thanks, Brian. Okay, with that, I would love to introduce to you our two speakers. Just briefly a reminder, we have Tammy Enfield from Brand Yourself Consulting and Ryan Furness from Nearest You and is it Find Local Brands, I think, right? So we're going to start off with Tammy, and I've stopped sharing so that you can share slides and take it away.
All right, let's see if I can get this right. Okay, can you guys see him?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for having me this year. I've always loved being a supporter of Feast, and I was talking to Ryan a little earlier, and been around for 10 years in southern Minnesota, so it's fun to continue to support the region that helped grow my business. I have been well known for creating brands, logos, and social media marketing. And an important piece of that is bringing a personal brand into it. So I wanted to talk today about growing your business by leveraging your personal brands. I think the first thing that's missing when we create a strategy for small businesses are usually the founders or the founder's story. So we want to make sure that we tell the story the right way and bring in who's doing the work behind the scenes to leverage that person or people and grow an online presence and increase engagement, which is everyone's goal. Whoops. Okay, so I know we're on limited time. I'm probably gonna blast through this pretty quick. Slides will be available, and then I have a resource for everyone too at the end of it. So why is personal branding important? Who are you? Defining your voice online, learning how to talk about yourself. I think that's where people get hung up the most, is how to talk about themselves without feeling put on the spot. Reviewing your brand touch points, doing a content audit of what you have, being consistent, and then generating new ideas. So what is a brand? Most people think a brand is a logo, which it is definitely an important piece of an overall brand strategy. But a brand isn't necessarily what your company does. It's not what you say you do, but it's actually what you do. So all of your actions online or all of your actions in person with your customers or with other stakeholders is what actually creates the brand. Usually tell people it's what people say about you after you leave the room. That's probably the most important descriptor of your brand and who you are. Defining your brand is important because it establishes an emotional connection with your followers. It helps them take first action, whether that means visiting your website or making a purchase or coming to see you at a trade show. It'll help them decide whether or not they want to come back. If they have a bad experience, it's probably not going to encourage them to come back for more. And then it helps establish and create brand loyalty, which is what we all want. We all want brand advocates out there telling people about us or sharing or buying our products as gifts. Defining your brand is the most important part of any marketing campaign, and it's the step most business owners skip altogether. When we start creating social media strategies for companies, we ask for brand guidelines, and they show us their logo, their colors, their fonts, but they don't give us any information about who they are and what makes them important or what makes them different from any of the other businesses out there. So sitting down and defining this may feel like big work. It's like sitting down and helping, putting words to your why. That's what everybody always gets frustrated with, is I do this because I love it. What do you mean? What are you asking me for? But putting words to this it would help everyone, all the stakeholders, be able to explain who you are and why you do what you do and why it's important. There's somebody in the waiting room. Should I admit them? It keeps popping up. Okay. So one of the first questions that you want to tackle is, like I've said a couple times, who are you? You need to ask yourself questions like, what are my values? What do I want people to know about me? What do I want people to know about my product? There's usually differentiators when we start marketing. Is it organic? Is it locally sourced? Is it available only in certain regions? Are we available online? Like, ask yourself all of these questions that you want people to know about you. For me, for brand yourself, when I sit down and define this, I want people to know that I usually tell it like it is. I'm very honest. I have a sense of humor, and I'm generally not afraid to swear during my presentations, although I know this is recorded, so I'll try not to. But I'm known for coming up with creative solutions. And when I ask other people what they think my intrinsic value is, they respond much like how I want them to know, what I want people to know about me. The answers I got when I asked people were on point with what I wanted to be known for. So I have run into instances where people think they're known for one thing and it is not the case. So making sure that your business and all of the stakeholders within that business are on point with what they want to be known for. And there's ways online and with your website and messaging strategies that you can start to gear people towards that. So what do you want to be known for? Brands are really trying to be human, which is good news because most of them are run by humans. But if you think of, Oprah is usually a fairly well-known brand. Do people care about the OWN network or do they care about Oprah? you know, it's the own network. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about necessarily brand yourself. They care about Tammy and what Tammy's doing at brand yourself or what she's influencing there. It isn't necessarily, brand yourself could be fairly boring without any humans, just like the own network is. I mean, the content on the own network probably isn't boring, but when people think of it, they think of Oprah, which is what personal branding is. And it's how you leverage your personal brand to grow the business. That's how she's grown own network. It's how I've grown brand yourself. A lot of people don't even know my company's name. They just know that I work with, I'm in marketing when they see me. So helping to define your personal brand, it's important to know who you are now and where you want to grow to. So understanding now and next is what we call it. The next being, is it a 1-year vision, 3-year vision, 5-year vision? How big do you want to get? And will your brand be able to support you there? Sometimes people do a rebrand if there's geographic name in their, on their marketing. They will establish some sort of a brand outside of their name to help grow, to help create some brand affinity and help people, you know, refer to them. So making sure you have goals and you know where you are now and where you want to go is important for your brand strategy. Defining your voice. This is the most important part. We define a lot of voices with our social media strategy, and some people are like, that doesn't sound like me, or this is spot on, and helping people get to a way where they can describe what they want their voice to be. Are you, you know, voice cards, are you, for personality, are you artistic, adventurous, analytical? Are you a minimalist? Are you loyal? Like, all of these things help describe the person. And then this helps us bring the person into the brand. So making sure that you can describe who you are and who your brand is important for personality and for tone of voice. So these are also, you know, are you motivational? Are you serious? Are you, you know, casual? One of our values is that we take your business seriously, but not ourselves. So you'll usually see us, most of the pictures that we have are playful or we're laughing. There's just a lot of, you know, we're not very serious. We're not really romantic either here at Brand Yourself, but I think we're a little motivational. I would say that our brand is probably more masculine than feminine, which is interesting because we're a team of all ladies. But, you know, I think we're funny. We think we're funny. But making sure that you can describe this and use this with your, you know, your copy within your content marketing, and keeping it consistent is important. Some examples of some brands that we've worked with: Hop and Barrel Brewing, they're out of Hudson. They're playful and approachable. Everything that we write for them is playful and approachable. There's not much seriousness in their brand. Why is it? Service Master, they're professional problem solvers. There's not much humor in disaster restoration. So it's very professional. It's very to the point. We, you know, help them describe what they do in a very business to business type of way. You can talk about yourself by telling stories about your customers. So show up in your feed. This is probably the most important thing. When we post a picture of an owner in social media feed, including any of the top performing posts at Brand Yourself, if I'm in it, they perform a lot better. Maybe because all my mom's friends are on my page and they like that. You know, it could be part of it, but it helps people connect emotionally. So some brands that put themselves in it. I don't know if any of you follow Jenna Kutcher. She's a Minnesota native. She's built quite the business for herself, and she shows up in her brand, talks about herself, talks about her feelings. She tells stories about her clients. She tells stories about herself. JJ Peterson, he's a part of a brand I follow, Story Brand. He shows up usually fun like this, jumping around. He makes me want to follow him just because he's funny, and I get a kick out of him. More local, anytime we put Chris Kennelly in front of Northfield Construction Company, people like those photos and engage with those photos more than they do of the beautiful homes that they build. He's relatable. Maybe the houses aren't as relatable. You know, it's really important to put yourself in your feed. Doesn't have to be every picture, but we recommend at least once a week, or I should say a quarter of your posts should be yourself. And don't worry about messing up. Try it on. If it doesn't feel right, try something else. If it doesn't feel authentic and you're starting to feel like, hey, this isn't me, it's okay to change up your voice. It's okay to shift. It's okay to change and to grow with your brand and your company. Who I was 10 years ago certainly isn't who I am today. So your brand grows with you. So it's okay to try on different things. Real quick, completing a brand audit is just making sure that what exists online is still who you are and is still relevant. You know, taking down old blog posts or taking down stuff that doesn't feel right anymore is definitely okay. Being aware of what your brand touch points are. So a brand touch point is any opportunity to increase awareness and build customer loyalty. So examples of brand touch points would be your website, a social media post, a flyer, an ad in a magazine, a business card. All these brand touch points need to stay consistent with both your physical, with both like your aesthetic brand and who you are as a person. One of the things, the thing that's missing from most social media posts is empathy. So if you lead with empathy, I understand what it's like, you know, to feel overwhelmed with social media. You know, we help customers define who they are and set the course for a good social media strategy. Connecting with people empathetically and with emotion will increase engagement every time. So it doesn't always have to be a picture of you when you're talking empathy, or when you know, I know what it's like to want to be the star of the party and bring the best cheese. That could be in, you know, I know what it's like. I understand what it's like. I'm going to help you. Here you go. Go buy my cheese. Repurposing good content. It's always a good idea. Keeping everything consistent. Not only in look, but in timing. Don't post and ghost, we call it. So making sure that you're posting consistently, whether that's once a month, you know, twice a month, once a quarter, if you're posting blog posts, just making sure that you're consistent and staying out there. I said that I'd have a resource for everybody. So we developed a course on how to automate your social media. This teaches people basically our system for social media management. It was created a couple of years ago with some team members that you guys might recognize. But here's, I'm offering it for free. So here's the link for free. I can put the link in the chat too. But yeah, it's just a good resource for how to automate your social media. You can download the editorial calendar that we use. We help define what your content pillars should be, and then what platforms to use to make sure that you're consistent in scheduling all that stuff. So I'm sure Elena will get this out to everyone, but I'll put the link in the chat when I'm done. That's it. That's it. I blazed through, tried to. I hope I didn't take too much time. Ryan's got some good stuff to share.
That's great. Thanks, Tammy.
Yeah. Do I stop sharing, or Ryan, yes, can you take over?
Yes.
Stop share. Okay, there.
I am going to get Ryan queued up here. Sorry, my dog is barking. Let's see. I am not able to make you co-host, Ryan. Why is that?
I think I may have been.
You are he is a co-host.
Okay, good. Great.
Goodness gracious. All right. Everybody can see the screen or not?
Yes.
Oops, not share. Okay, there we go. That better?
Looks good. Thank you.
Okay, so hello, everybody. A lot of people know me. Looks like most people on the call have seen something about Nearest You, know me. Thanks, Brian, for the shout out. We've really appreciated the support from the state on a business level and just on a personal level. They've been really, really helpful in communicating to brands and local, food and beverage companies about Nearest You and just about all the resources that are out there, including things like Tammy's business. So it's been great. They're a great resource, and they're a part of all of this, and certainly have the same context we do within the food and beverage space, which is to really help the suppliers do a better job of selling online and connecting with their customers. So Tammy and I did have a conversation before this just to line up a little bit, because we have a lot of crossover, and I thinking of a business sense, depend on her and her services to be able to help support what we build for brands, which is the store locators and the sales analytics tools that we do. So from that perspective, we go hand in hand. We really do. So we build things, and then Tammy tells people about them, which is awesome, right? And but more generally, this idea of selling online is really, it's tricky, and there's a lot of ins and outs, and there's a lot of money that can be spent in you need to be really, really careful with how you spend those. Everybody is, right? Producers are. But I just wanted to run briefly through some of the things that we come across and we deal with brands when we just general consulting or questions sometimes about, even if it's not necessarily our core business. But this slideshow will be available to anybody after. Happy to provide that. But here's all the links and things. So the three things that I found as far as resources for wholesale ordering marketplaces. You may have heard these before. Certainly Range Me comes to mind. Elaine and I discussed this. Hubba and Fair. So these are three somewhat different platforms. These are national. These are not local to Minnesota. But Range Me, generally, it has two tiers, which is the free tier, and some of you may be on that tier, to produce a profile and then have buyers come and look at your products and potentially set up meetings or order your products for their stores. This is generally, though, for chain buyers and much larger brands ready to expand more regionally or certainly nationally. Range Me, from what I hear from brands, the local ones that we chat with, the free profile isn't super productive. It's fine to have, but we haven't heard a ton of success stories as far as that breakout. But you've got to be ready as a brand to launch nationally if you're looking at the Range Me side of things. Hubba is much more accessible. Hubba is essentially brings together independent retailers, like just imagine small gift shops in outstate Minnesota looking to buy innovative products, food and beverage products specifically, but others as well. And so, being a part of Hubba, I've heard, has been really beneficial for small brands to get small accounts, wholesale accounts in independent retailers across the region. It's not just Minnesota. Certainly, this is a national thing as well. And Fair, from my understanding, I don't know as much about that one, but from my understanding is it's very similar to Hubba, where you're essentially selling through them and into these small accounts. So for indie retailers, but those are the three main ones. And you can ask me some questions after, certainly, or anytime you can raise your hand, but these are available for you to check out and potentially utilize. So then the next side of the online selling is the marketplaces for consumers, right? Amazon, of course, gets the first mention, and we have consulted with some brands locally that have gotten started on Amazon, and shout out to Isadore Nuts and Gustola Granola, for example, as two local ones. But it's tricky. It's a tricky business. I mean, that's the one thing that I do tell brands up front, like it's hard to make money on Amazon. And keeping your things in stock, getting awareness of that nationally, getting in front of people now that Amazon has millions of brands. Just being on Amazon isn't a guarantee of a sale. To build it and they will come is not true. You have to advertise it. You have to you have to do marketing efforts with people like Tammy to promote your Amazon store. Like, hey guys, we have a new Amazon store. Come and check it out. All across your social, you splash that everywhere, even LinkedIn. Getting people aware that they can get your stuff on Amazon. There are a lot of costs involved in that, though. Both time and inventory management is a huge cost, and just selling on there. They're like a distributor. They'll take their cut, and sometimes more. They'll expire your products. They'll turn off your listings randomly. So you're outsourcing that. Know that up front, but that is a place, and this Amazon Seller Central requires a whole session to, like, how do you get set up? How long does it take? 2 to 3 months. What happens when I'm set up? How do I send in products? That kind of stuff. How do I advertise? And then I listed a whole bunch here. I'm not going to go into detail for time reasons, but there's a whole bunch of other online marketplaces for generally for consumers. Okay, and those are all hyperlinked, so you'll be able to check those out individually if you want to reach out to any of them. As you can see, there's a heavy bent towards the vegan. This isn't, and vegetarian, but and healthy. That sort of fits in that sort of space. But I didn't do it just because there's a bunch of vegans. I'm a vegetarian, but I don't promote only veganism or vegetarianism. It just is where a lot of the small online marketplaces for consumers are focused, in that very niche area. So, and then of course, we've got our online marketplaces here in Minnesota. So I really wanted to give a shout out, a special one to the ones here locally, that if you're not aware, you should definitely be aware of and be a part of in a meaningful way, meaning sell your products with them. Frank and Ernest Foods, right, with Libby, if you've heard of her, coming out of the Linden Hills Farmers Market space, been a super big push this pandemic for her services here and this online ordering system. Obviously Feast, and the marketplace that they've set up. You Betcha Box, and that's also been a really good resource for some of our smaller brands. So we work with about 40 Minnesota brands in the food, beverage, and adult beverage space. And a lot of them use You Betcha Box, and they're on Frank and Ernest Foods. And then there's a few others, the Minnie and Paul, the Nice Gifts, and the Minnesota Makers are all other great spaces. They sell online, as well as, I think Minnesota Makers has a store, if not 2 stores, right? I believe now they opened one up in Excelsior. So definitely reach out to them. Sort of like Golden Fig, right, is another. I don't know if they do online sales, but Golden Fig. So the last couple of slides, I just wanted to bring it home with this idea about e-commerce and you controlling it, right? And so Tammy's message about you controlling your message and you being authentic, and while online, you don't have control over how those other companies sell your products. Everything that I just mentioned, you've outsourced that, you've given up control. And that's not always a bad thing, but just that up front. Well, e-commerce and your own website is where you can control that, just like in your own social media. So these are generally the bigger platforms that everybody uses to build their own and manage their own websites. So Shopify, WordPress, Wix, and Squarespace. And I won't go through any of these in great detail, but you can just see my mini little notes here about, Shopify being pretty easy for novices, lots of integration, plugins, marketing tools. Our store locator software works perfectly on all of these, but Shopify is especially so. If you have a WordPress site, you can set up a shopping cart with that for WooCommerce. It's a little bit harder for novices. WordPress is, I would say, maybe Tammy would agree, but I think it's generally a little bit harder than Shopify, and certainly harder than a Wix or a Squarespace to set up. So Wix and Squarespace versus Shopify. Shopify tends to be a little more expensive to start. Wix and Squarespace cheaper from a monthly basis. But if I would start with those, quite honestly, but Shopify is a good place to start as well. But it starts at $30 a month or $29, and Wix and Squarespace are less than 15, I think. But a couple of key things to note around owning that e-commerce, and to Tammy's, we actually talked about a few of these things before the discussion here, is when you own your own e-commerce, you own all the rest of these ways to connect with customers, right? And so that's mailing lists. That's a huge thing, to own your own mailing list, and the consumers that have your brand advocates, to own that list and to communicate with that list meaningfully and frequently. Frequently could be once a month, because we don't want to spam anybody, but once a month email about what your company is doing, what new products you've got on the horizon, things like that. Couponing, I mean, it is a big deal. Coupons, so you can do those through your own e-commerce, certainly through other sites, but and then you can control things like free shipping for minimum spends and trying to test it. Like Tammy said, nothing is forever. You try it out. Try free shipping with a minimum $50 purchase. Does that bring in more sales? Give that a whirl. And then analytics, right? I mean, I know it's hard for all of you makers out there because you have so many balls in the air, from operations to marketing to website development and management. I mean, it's just crazy. I can't supply chain, but analytics is a really important piece to understand where to put your marketing dollars, especially where are people coming from on my website? Are they coming from Duluth or are they coming from Milwaukee? That's important when you're doing Facebook ads or you're having Tammy help you with Facebook ads. And I think the more she knows about where your customers are or where your potential customers are, the better those ads are going to perform, the better that message getting out there is going to be. And then of course, our own side of that is just the store locator, that people love maps. They love to be able to find your products. And the key thing about that is keeping it up to date. You want to make sure with whatever solution you have, it doesn't have to be near SKUs, but like you have a map, you tell people where to find your stuff and you keep it up to date so that when consumers go somewhere, they find your products in stock and they don't end up buying a competitor's product because you didn't update your map and 6 months later they go and buy a different granola. So it is really important, and I'm biased, of course, but it's really, really important to keep your store locator up to date so that you send people to the right stores. And then lastly is the support groups. So I just put in here a couple of online support groups that have been really helpful for me. Honestly, all 4 of these have been very helpful. So the 2 local ones, the Minnesota Grown and the Grow North, both have been very, very helpful. So I would definitely look at their resources. It looks like there's been some things shared through the MDA, but it's related to Minnesota Grown. And then there's 2 national ones that you probably don't know about. Startup CPG, their primary means of communication is Slack. So Slack is an online communication tool, but it's great. There's all kinds of food and beverage brands in there now, probably over 2,000 of them. It just started last year, but it just grew crazy during the pandemic. And so there's all kinds of chatter on there and sharing of resources. And, how do you get into C-stores? How do you get into what's the next best pitch for a chain store? Those kind of things are what's being talked about on Startup CPG. And then the 4 chapters of the Naturally brand. So it started in Boulder. So it's Naturally Boulder, Naturally Austin. Unfortunately, that's not Austin, Minnesota. That's Austin, Texas. And then San Francisco and Chicago. Chicago is the closest. And I'd recommend when we get back to programming in person that you go sometime to one of their in-person events if you ever have the chance. They're really beneficial, good networking, knowing people in Chicago area if you want to expand your brand to Illinois and Chicago especially. So great, and that's it. So that was also pretty quick, but I know all the links are here. So I just wanted to give everybody an overview and give you all the little links in there that allow for that. So.
Thank you, Ryan.
I think that's everything.
Okay. So I'm going to leave you spotlighted. I'm going to spotlight Tammy again, and hopefully we can see both of you. Okay. So thank you both. That was fun. And we don't have any questions yet in the chat, but I just want to let everybody know I definitely will be sending out those presentations. So thank you guys for being willing to share those. I have a bunch of questions for you, so I will kick it off. But again, whether it's the chat or whether you want to raise your hand using the reactions button, turn off your mute and on your video, please join in the conversation. So Tammy, I want to start with you because I love the messaging about keeping your own personality in your messaging. 25% of the time seems like a lot. I think one of the questions that comes to my mind is, how do you find a balance between making your uh, your imagery look professional while also spontaneous and having, you know, kind of enough images of you in there. And you didn't talk much about stories, but I feel like stories might be kind of an additional way to use that on Instagram. Um, so can you
Yeah.
just talk a little bit about that for, especially for our vendors who are doing this on a shoestring budget,
Mm-hmm.
probably taking their own photos, etc.
Yep. So we encourage our clients who are creating their own content to batch content. So to set yourself up with, I mean, there's some really inexpensive, wonderful tools out there. Lighting is definitely important. So a ring light, you might feel pretty fancy with one of those, but there are ring lights, and then there's a remote for your camera. So you don't need much more than your cell phone camera, to be honest. As a professional photographer, it hurts my heart a little bit that I can say that we sometimes take pictures with our iPhones. But you can set it, if you don't have anyone to take pictures of you, you can set your phone up, take some, batch all that content, making, make sure that pictures of yourself can be really intimidating to then use. But have a friend take them, have your kid take them. My teenage daughter probably knows how to use my camera phone better than I do. And then batch that save the pictures. It's okay to reuse good pictures of yourself too. Don't think that. But making sure that your products have good light, good background. We encourage people to have, even if it's just, I went to Target and got some white foam board that's not reflective. It's just like a matte color, and you put your product down on that. You take your cell phone and you take a picture, and it shows up so 100% better than if you put it on your kitchen table. Natural light's always best. So if you can be in front of your sliding glass door or a window at your office, put your product down on that white foam board, take a bunch of pictures with different, with beer or with beverages. It's trendy right now to have the ingredients with it. So we'll go out and buy pineapple. If it's a pineapple seltzer and you cut up the pineapple, you squirt the juice. If you're looking to make something appear cold, getting a water bottle with some, spritz something so that it looks like it's nice and frosty. Just being a little bit creative with that. I take some practice, but making sure that your products are displayed in the best way you can. You don't want blurry rice or granola out on your social feeds, because it's a brand touch point, and it's what people are learning about you and seeing and finding. So a quarter of the time is actually, of having yourself and your brand is actually on the low side. I know it sounds like a lot. People aren't used to it, but people are going to engage more with a picture of the brewer or the bartender than they are with a picture of a pint glass on a table. Like, everybody's putting a pint glass of beer on it. Ryan and I talked about that too. Like, it's pretty standard. You either see a pint glass with someone holding it in front of a brick wall, or you see it on the table, nice light and everything. But if you had the owner or maybe even like one of your favorite customers can be in it and then holding it, and then they can give you a testimonial. Like, it's just, there's so many different ways to showcase a product. And then for yourself, telling stories about maybe what your favorite part of the process is. Most breweries started with, I started home brewing in the garage, and all my buddies thought I should start a brewery. Like, that's usually the story. So differentiating that with personality and with, the type of beer they like to brew and why. What is it about the product? Most people who are in the food industry love it because it brings people together, right? Like, you share food. Granted, during COVID, it's a little different, but it brings people together. It's what you gather around. You gather around the kitchen counter when you're talking or when you're entertaining. So taking pictures of that, taking pictures of people enjoying the product, including yourself. will get far more engagement and than any picture of your packaging will. Does that, I could keep going on and on and on, but I think that
No,
spoke
I
to it a
think
little
that's good. It's great that you brought up testimonials, because that was something that Ashley Aukus mentioned in yesterday's presentation. That, you know, if you tend to be introverted and shy, you know, that's an alternative way to get some personality and some connection in.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think if you could find creative ways to maybe have yourself partly in the shot, but that just helps you show how you connect with people too. And I think
Mhm.
very much about personal connection, and also call to action is the other thing.
Mhm.
And so I want to bring Ryan into the conversation about how to make sure that people are often coming across reminders of, you know, how to find you in stores, all the different platforms that you're on, because customers aren't on all of these platforms, but you're trying to meet them where they are, right?
Yeah, I think that's, you know, like we've said, I think the question that brands most get is, where can I find your product? My friend told me about it. I saw on your social media, they shared it with me multiple ways, but then they say, where can I get it? Right. It's always that's like a number one or two questions that a brand would get. And being able to tell that, you know, succinctly and easily for them on their mobile devices, of course, because everyone's on their mobile device these days. And, you know, things that you wouldn't think about, a zip code search. No, mobile users don't know their zip codes. So to only allow them to be able to search by zip code, anything is a bad initial way to do it, because you don't know it when you're not in your house. You don't know your zip code. It sounds crazy, right? But it's true. You're traveling around. Even in the city. You're not. You don't know the zip code that you're sitting in. So in a coffee shop.
Great point.
Yeah. So that's always helpful to, you know, geolocation and things like that. But brand discovery is huge. You know, we hope that in the future we'll get back to sampling in stores. That's another huge touch point that we didn't talk about today, but certainly that's you know, where we want to put some effort. You know, we have a tool for that planned, but since sampling stopped, we decided to turn it off. But it's a sampling finder. We call it a free food finder. So brands can say where they're actually sampling their new products around the city or around the state, and and it shows them on a map so people can go check them out and try their stuff. But I think that's you know,
That's excellent. I can tell you from my experience, I've had times when I found out one of my, you know, pre-COVID, found out that one of my favorite businesses was sampling at my local co-op, but I found out about it like the next day and I was bummed. So I think, you know, eventually we'll get back to doing store demos more, and I hope that comes back. I also see
yeah.
a lot of vendors use uh, photos from inside of a store showing their product on a shelf on their social channels. And I'm wondering if you think that that's as powerful as the other thing that sometimes people do, which is kind of show the exterior of the building, kind of like, this is the building you come to, and then they'll sometimes put their product right out in front. Um, so Tammy, what do you think? You know, as far as helping people visualize themselves at a place where they can get your product, what do you think of those two?
Well, I think another great way to tell stories is to highlight the accounts that you're at. We've done that with some of our beverage accounts and food accounts. It's where you can find us, and here's what's cool about their store. Displays are really great. I don't know how, you know, maybe if you're in there pointing to it, that's a way to get you, and shelf placement in there. I think it's definitely not the only thing you'd want to see is in your feed is your product along with everyone else's on a shelf. But I think there's some creative ways to point to it. I know Just Foods in Northfields has a lot of products that I've seen at Feast, and highlighting Just Foods in social content is something I've also seen other, you know, artisans do. So I think it's a great way to promote your your wholesalers and your product and yourself if you can get a picture of yourself in the store.
Great.
I have
So
a
I want
question.
to, yeah,
Tammy,
I also want to get to the questions in the chat too, but go ahead, Brian.
I have a question about like, can you oversaturate your social media exposure?
No, I think with the algorithm changes, and I mean, if you think about how many, I can post something on Brand Yourself and nobody can engage with it. It depends on the time you post it, who it gets in front of. At any given moment, the algorithm is choosing between millions of options to show you when you log on to Facebook. So the chance that it's yours is pretty slim, and the chance that the people that are following you are going to see every single post you do is slim to very, like, none. So oversaturating it just means that you're giving people more opportunities to maybe see it and maybe not.
I guess that the only caveat I'd put in there is that it quickly becomes oversaturated if they're crappy posts, right? So they've got to be engaging. They've got to
Yeah.
follow some of those other rules that you've kind of laid out. But if people see those social media posts as like a freebie, like it's got to be like a gift. It can't be just about you, because
Mhm.
people don't buy the product because you made it, Tammy. Maybe your sister does, but everybody else is like,
Right.
does this product work for me? And the social media post, I think, has to work for the viewer too. Like it's
That's
something
why
you're
empathy
doing
is
for
so important.
yeah.
It creates that emotional connection and helps them understand why they need it.
Mm,
Great. Yep. So we had a couple comments about Amazon. Brian was
Yeah.
asking, is it true that there are more product searches on Amazon than any other search tool, surpassing Google?
yeah.
And for small brands, do you think it's worthwhile to be on Amazon just for the brand exposure?
Yeah. Thanks for the tough questions, Brian. Those are tricky, to be honest, because it's all about the business goals, right? And I'm sure that's why you asked it, actually, because a lot of brands have that question: is it viable for me? Is it something that I should consider? And I think from an experimental standpoint, it really is okay to try it. I mean, if you can afford it. And I think by afford it, I mean getting set up, getting started on there, trying a small set of products initially. If you have 10 SKUs, just to do 2, 3, or 4 of them, assuming they're not fresh things. And so it's something that you can start relatively minimally, from a resource standpoint, financial resource, where maybe it's $3,000 to sort of get set up for that kind of a thing. And then you get your first products in there and you see how they sell. And if it doesn't work out, or you start to see you're not making money, or certainly losing money, because that's always a possibility as well. So then you could turn it off, right? You could just say, okay, well, I guess this didn't really work out. I wouldn't give it a month. I would give it something like 6 months and have a planned budget in what you intend to spend, and then sort of say, no, I'm done there with that. With that amount of money, I've said 5,000 or 6,000, whatever that amount is for you, they're budgeting for Amazon for 6-month trial. I think it's worth it for a fair amount of brands. There are some brands that aren't really ready, even from a fulfillment standpoint, for Amazon, because what if it does start to take off? Can you afford to siphon some of your inventory and your production away from any stores you're in, or your own online e-commerce stuff? So that's something to consider when you jump into an Amazon and it really starts to roll a little bit. To Brian's point about searches, yes, it's a crazy, I don't know what it is. It was over 50% the last time I checked, but when people are looking for food or beverages, they actually start on Amazon, or anything but food and beverage, versus just doing a Google search now. They go right to Amazon instead of a general Google search. That's huge. Even for brands locally, if you're a local producer of baking mixes, people are still looking for your stuff on Amazon. Even you're in Minnesota and you might be in 30 stores, they still might want to buy it on Amazon. And you want to be prepared to consider that as a way to get the product to them, is through their Prime orders on Amazon, which means you have to send it into Amazon and have it warehoused with them, right, as part of their Seller Central and what they call Fulfilled by Amazon. You pay some fees for that, but honestly, for some brands, shipping is cheaper that way. If you're you have expensive shipping charges from your own website, Amazon's are all subsidized in a way that it makes it pretty affordable for brands to sell and ship through there, because you don't pay for shipping, they do. They just charge you through that FBA fee. And yeah, to Brian's comment, Mike and Jen's is really doing quite well on Amazon as well. You know, their site's good. They're in a bunch of stores, maybe a few hundred stores around the region, and they sell on Amazon. And I think they outsource that. From what I understand, as far as who's doing the work on the back end of managing the Seller Central and the inventory management, they essentially just supply the product. Maybe that's changed since I last chatted with them, but so be careful of that as well. There's a lot of companies out there that will handle everything for you. And I'm a big proponent of, I can help you get set up on Amazon and we can do the basics and we can really get you running, but you should really own that, you know, just because if you start outsourcing everything, you're not going to make any money at all. You've gone from your somewhat small margin that you could have had on Amazon to now zero because you're paying that margin to someone to do all that work. So, and just knowing about it, watching their webinars, knowing their basics of how to run your Amazon store, you should know that from a business operations standpoint and not outsource it right away. You know, if you get big and it gets hard, certainly do that. But from the get-go, you should learn the basics just to be able to handle it yourself in case of a future need. Because $1,000 a month to manage it, to have someone else manage it for you, can be a lot. And I'm just throwing a number. It could be 500, it could be 1,500. And that's a small amount for what companies charge to manage Amazon. So.
Yeah. Well, Janet, did you want to pop on and ask your question? I'm not sure if it was a comment or a question, but I think the topic of whether you can still get traffic driven to your own account.
It's
Do you want to add to that, Janet?
Last year I was in an Amazon mastermind group. Josie's on it now. I left kind of in a state of confusion a little bit. And I'm not so sure it's my brand. You know, you got to be comfortable with who you are. And Amazon, I'm a cooperative person. I'm regional, I'm seasonal. Amazon has Amazon Live. You're not allowed to demo with someone else's product, even if you sell on Amazon. If I'm a cooperative person and I want to do a demo, I do it on Instagram, I do it on my website, I do it on YouTube. Amazon has rules about how they want things to be. And it's not bad. It just might not be your brand if your brand is about cooperating and sharing your stories with other local vendors. And I mean, I was told not to try to sell other people's products and to focus on my own brand. But I'll tell you, I have a mixer. So you mix it with apple juice or tonics or water. If I'm going to demo my product, I have an opportunity to showcase a brand and be cooperative. And I'm not going to take advantage of that if I'm on Amazon. Well, I am, because I do it anyway. My recipes have Top Note Tonic on it. I haven't done Amazon Live. Basically, you have to do what you do. And if you get caught, they'll slap your hand and tell you not to do that. You know, they say don't put coupons in, but I know vendors that put coupons in because they don't do fulfillment by Amazon. They do fulfillment by merchant. And then there's all these issues with these chronic inventory problems because yes, the people search and yes, you can advertise. But if you sent stuff in 3 weeks ago and you paid to do all that and they run out of inventory, then you have to start all over again, you know, when the inventory gets relisted and to re-win. So how do you manage? And that's why people pay people, because then you watch your inventory really carefully and you make sure there's enough and you make sure you answer any questions or any problems. And if there's some delay, you just make a whole new batch and you send yet another batch in, and then you'll have double the batches, but at least you don't have a break in your sales. And the hardest part of that is the holidays. So how do you do that during the holidays when shipping is all kind of crazy? So then basically you have to have everything shipped in by September. And then if you like manage it as you go along. So the whole thing is just it's the way it is, and it's not bad. It just might not be for your brand. Like if you have a brand and it's a one-time only purchase, then you're using Amazon for a one-time only purchase. But what was interesting about Kombucha Kit is after you use up your tea, you want more tea to make more kombucha. So she had returning purchases, and then she was trying to get people to come to her website to make the returning. So she only sold the kits on Amazon, and then she sold the tea and the flavorings on her website.
Hmm.
So I haven't figured out a strategy for me. I've thought about it, but maybe it's something I can't figure out. But I think it's good to think about what your strategy is and how you can sell, because it's got to be within your customer base and to serve your customers. So Amazon is search words. The customers type in stuff and they might make recommendations. But if you want to win customers and they don't know what it is and they're not crazy about shrubs, but they're willing to try it, you've got to sort of sort that out within yourself. I'm not a high-end product. So if someone's looking for high-end, I'm not that. So I've got to like kind of focus in on who that customer is, and then not go for the general public. I think Amazon has helped me though, because people put search words in and you can see all that. So I can see what people search for Amazon. But when I compare it to Google search words, which I only just started, they're actually different words. So there's different reasons why people search on Amazon. People who search on Amazon are buying. That's the interesting thing about it. So they're searching to buy on Amazon. That's all I have to say. I don't really have a question. I just think it has to do with how you want to do your business. And the goal is to make money. It's not just to sell stuff on Amazon. If you sell stuff on Amazon, you don't make money, then you're not attaining your goals. But if you sell stuff on Amazon and you win some of the customers through them, like Kombucha Kit did, then you can get your goals. But I don't know if I'm that kind of company like that was. So I have to like look at my own company and try to figure it out.
Can I ask, what came up for me during your comment was if people were taking advantage of the Facebook and Instagram shops. Like when they're, Ryan, I don't know if you deal with any of that, but you can attach your like Shopify account to the back end of Facebook and actually direct sell your products from a Facebook shop. People don't even have to leave Facebook or Instagram to purchase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have much experience with it. I've seen it as a consumer, and we've heard a little bit of
me a lot on Instagram. I've purchased quite a bit of purses that way.
Really?
But I think it's a really great opportunity for smaller brands to have that shop, and it's free to set up as long as you have a business account with them. But and you can, in the back end, you can tie in your Shopify, so it can also, and I'm sure it'll tie into WooCommerce and other programs, but it'll help track inventory then too.
Yeah, and related to that, maybe, and sort of going slightly off topic, thanks, Janet. That was really good feedback. Seriously, that's really great to hear from brands' experiences directly about what they've done on Amazon and what they hear and what they've experienced, because that's how we get better information. But related to the Facebook store, I just want to put out there for the few people that are on here listening, that I've always struggled with boosting of ads, right? So ad boosting on Facebook. And I've told brands often, if you don't have a strategy, don't boost, don't waste your money doing that, because, and I may be wrong in some ways, but certainly if you don't have a strategy, maybe make that first and then decide where you're going to put those ad spend dollars, because Facebook makes it too easy to spend your money on ads. And if you don't have a direction for those ads, you can be literally throwing money out the door. It's just like, oh, there goes $5 out the window. I just tossed it out the window, because you're not really going to get any meaningful engagement, which would lead to a sale. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about selling more in general, right? Like this post will lead to better brand engagement, higher, more clicks, more likes, more people happy, clicking through to the website and buying it, or the Facebook store and buying it. But Facebook ads, we've done a little bit of that management for some brands, but it's not our wheelhouse.
We do quite a bit. Split testing is definitely important, and it's kind of counterintuitive, but you only want to boost posts that are doing well organically.
Mm-hmm.
Like people usually will throw money at like what I said, I can post something and nobody will click on it. Like somewhat common sense would tell me, okay, I should throw some money at that so people actually see it and comment on it. But Facebook is going to say, well, that content isn't good because nobody has commented on it. So we'll take your money, but we're not going to show it to as many people as we would if it was a post that was doing well organically. So if you're going to boost, only boost the ones that are doing well organically, and then you actually get more bang for your buck by going into Facebook Ad Manager and setting up campaigns based on certain goals, whether that be to go to the Facebook shop and purchase, or if
Yeah.
it's visit the website, or if it's brand awareness. Like you can set a ton of different goals, and you just have a ton more options within Facebook ads.
I have
Do you
a question.
have like a, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, Ryan, you finish.
Just do you have a part of your package or services in that way too, where you can, like just tell people, hey, these are the 5 best ways to get started with Facebook ads, kind of like we do with Amazon ads. We don't really want to manage all that for our clients, but to tell them, this is what you need to do to set them up. This is how you watch them. This is what kind of campaigns, this is the A/B testing that you could do, and sort of like a 5 bullet point.
There's our next course, Ryan. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, no, for sure. Seriously, like that, it's a huge issue in the industry, and I think that kind of thing would be super meaningful from just a guerrilla marketing standpoint. Here's, do this on your own, and then I think people realize this is hard, and I need some help, and then we can reach out with things. But anyway, sorry, Brian. I think that was.
I like it.
It was me. Do you, Tammy, the next course that you have to do after that is, well, let me tee it up a little bit. You're right with the organic. We'd see that even with Renewing the Countryside's posts, with Feast posts. We've noticed that you're right, throwing money at a post that nobody's seen doesn't get anybody to see it, but it can work for something that did have a little momentum.
Mhm.
That being said, in momentum and it already getting some traction, do you have a course on guaranteed ways to have your post go viral? I will take that.
Okay, I'll work on that. That'll make me millions.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. That was flippant, and I think everybody that's listening probably also knows that was a little flippant, and your answer was perfect. But I think that we are all looking for that thing that's sticky, and what it
social
does.
media.
And go ahead.
Social media will not save a business.
No.
It's a way to get your brand out there and make some sales, but Ryan was right when people have to be able to find your product to buy it, and then the email list is the only thing that you own. So making sure that you're using other avenues of marketing besides social. Social is an easy solution to a lot of people, but they'll call and be like, well, I have to increase sales by 300% by the end of the quarter. And it's like, well, social's not going to do it for you. So making sure that you're concentrating on other avenues of marketing. We love social media, but it can only do so much.
Yeah, no, that mailing list, to hit that home before we sort of close up here in the next few minutes or so, but is to really, that's so true. The mailing list is that thing you own, and it's so vital. And so few brands that I hear from actually keep a really good list. They have like a sign up for our newsletter button on their website, but they may even capture some of those, but they don't actually produce the website or the newsletter once a month. That's somewhere that if you're on Amazon, you can do all kinds of things in your newsletter. Like, here's a coupon for buying on Amazon. Here's a link to our website that has a free shipping coupon or a 10% off coupon for our own website sales stuff. Like, you can just use that for so many things to engage them. And I think that's super meaningful to hit home, is that mailing list. And then keeping that list up to date, keeping it, don't spam them on there because they'll unsubscribe, but keeping it active. And I think this
but if they unsubscribe, they might not be a person that's going to purchase again and again anyway. So don't be afraid of unsubscribes. The other thing I'll say is, once you have your email list, you can actually upload your email list into Facebook and say, these are my clients. I want to find people like these. And they will actually use their data to find profiles similar to the ones that are on your email list. So if your target market is females age 30 to 45 with kids that homeschool, and that's what your email list consists of, Facebook will actually find other females age 30 to 45.
That's not scary at all.
No, not at all.
But that's I mean, that, and then that increases the likelihood of a sale if you're finding people that are mirroring your target market. So there's just so many things you can do with an email list.
Yeah. I would like to circle back a little bit to what Janet was saying that really resonates with what your message was, Tammy, about being on brand, knowing who you are. And so I think it's great if you collaborate with other businesses, and I think you should raise that freak flag high. And I think, you know, that helps with your identity, and it also helps with the algorithm. If you're putting things out on social media and tagging the partners that you work with, I think it helps you build that organic reach, and also is on message, so it's kind of a win-win. And I would also put out there, besides collaborating with other um, businesses for ingredients like in a mixer, there are other great ways that we've seen collaboration, especially in this past year, with gift bags, gift collections. And you know, with Feast, where right now we have this online marketplace, we're pushing Mother's Day, you know, so we've got some of our vendors who've created gift baskets targeting, you know, something that would be great to give to your mother. But I think finding creative ways to do that, as well as if you source from farms, tagging, you know, doing a little bit more of that, kind of shining the light on those farms, and being very willing to not only share yourself but share the people that you love working with, I think is a great way to boost that organic reach along with your branding. So I just want to do a quick check on who's here that we haven't heard from. So Debbie, Kyle, Jane, I would love to hear thoughts from you guys, how you think you might put this into action. Kyle, you're muted.
I know, I was trying to find I couldn't find the mute button on the thing. I was actually kind of tutting to myself, so nobody missed anything. I wanted to maybe sort of reiterate some of my experiences on Amazon. I would say for Daddy Sam's, it's been great because we are trying to scale to a nationally distributed company. And so it's been great for us to understand demand in potential new marketplaces. But I would say no one makes money at Amazon. I think absolutely no one makes money at Amazon. And if you become a vendor on Amazon, you never buy anything at Amazon ever again. I mean, because it's horrible. It's so unpleasant to work with Amazon. And really, and Ryan and I have chatted about this a lot because we like to geek out about maps, but I have generated a lot of terrific information that can be very granular, even down to the zip code +4. And so if you do sell on Amazon, I would say look to it as a way to get some sort of down and dirty Nielsen numbers, and talk to Ryan about it. He has been an amazing, you know, resource for me about that. And it is hard though. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you have to keep up with, and everybody's trying to keep their businesses going. So it's a tremendous amount of extra work that you put on your plate when you start to sell on Amazon, and there will be essentially no revenue. There will be an understanding of national demand. And so I would say, if you have, I have a product in glass, and so that makes it a little bit extra complicated. It's shelf stable, so that's great, but it's fragile and it breaks and it needs more protection for the shipping. And so I would say really consider your package dimensions and the requirements for it to ship, because those poor UPS drivers, particularly during the pandemic, are just run ragged, and the packages are flying around in the back. And I don't blame the UPS drivers. I mean, it's just been a tough year, but I really think it's like the devil is in the details if you want to sell on Amazon, but you can get some amazing information. So I would encourage anybody can talk to me, you know, if you would like. I'll put my email in the chat, but I would say, if you want to sell on Amazon, take the long view. Like, it took me really 2 years before I could generate kind of a good looking heat map. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Amazon. And it was really great also to hear that social media won't save you, because it's certainly an attractive trap to be like, oh, I'll just, you know, get the word out. But it's always important to focus on the basics. And Amazon really, I don't think for smaller businesses, Amazon's not a basic. Unless you're drop shipping or doing something else, but if you're actually making your product, it's better to, you can't form a relationship with Amazon. So form your relationships with your distributors and your retailers, and and that's where the money will continue to be. But I'll put my my email if anybody wants to talk to me about my experience at Amazon. I'm happy to talk. And thanks for this. This has been so great.
Thanks, Kyle. All right. So Josie, you asked for a session on social media. I would love that. I think we should be doing more of these virtual meetups, and to just kind of walk through things, targeting what people need to know most. So I will talk to Tammy about that, and we'll see if we can go
I'm
that
game.
direction. Yeah. Great. Are there any other questions? Bob, I haven't heard anything from you. And maybe Bob has stepped away. All right. Well, thanks, Jane. I'm glad that this answered some of your thoughts about Facebook Store. How long has Facebook Store allowed for purchasing within Facebook, Tammy?
What do you mean? Sorry,
So I know that there's the shop button that you can do on Facebook, but you were saying you can make purchases within the app. So do you know how long that's been possible?
since Facebook owns Instagram, you can set up your Facebook shop and then you tag the product in your posts and people can click on that and go right to purchase. And they don't have to leave Facebook or Instagram to do so. You got to make it really easy for people. If they have to leave Facebook, go to your website, search for it again, and then create an account and then add on all their payment stuff. It like people unfortunately lose interest in having to do too many steps. So making it as easy as possible. You can tag your product, they can click it, buy now, and it ties right into whatever your back. Well, if you don't have like a Shopify or a WooCommerce, Facebook will let you set one up on your own. But
Excellent. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, everyone, we will send out these great slideshows, and we'll stay in touch. You have
thanks,
contact
everyone.
information. Yep.
Good to see you folks.
Thanks.
You.